Information and data are everywhere in the world in which we live. It is ubiquitous in our lives and comes in many forms. But there is a very important difference simply between information and personal information that must be protected. In this video, you'll learn what personal information is, the rights of each individual, and our responsibility to protect it. Personal information is connected to the students, staff, and parents you have contact with in your role. It is important to learn about the legislative requirements and responsibilities you have as an employee within Peterborough, Victoria, Northumberland, and Clarington Catholic District School Board for the protection of personal information. Having awareness and understanding of personal information management, or PIM, will help you conduct the work within your role safely and promote continued public confidence that our board makes PIM a high priority. At this point, you might be asking, what is personal information, and why is it so important to protect? Personal information is defined as information that identifies a person, such as a name, address, and phone number. Examples of personal information include school photos, videos, and other digital recordings, health information, and student records. There are many forms of personal information within the school system, which include, but aren't limited to, paper records, such as report cards, class lists, and printed special education records, including individual education plans, safety plans, or behavior plans. Electronic records, such as student information systems, Ontario Student Records, OSRs, and electronic student attendance records. Photographs, including yearbook images. Video footage, including from surveillance cameras located in schools, and from video or digital files recorded in the classroom or school. These examples of personal information pervade schools and departments within our school board and need to be handled securely with confidentiality. It's important to protect and manage personal information because of legal requirements that all public and separate school boards must follow when dealing with students' personal information. The Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario, IPC, oversees the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, MFIPA. This law sets out the rules that school boards, schools, and all employees must follow regarding the collection, retention, use, disclosure, and deletion of personal information. Under Ontario's access and privacy laws, a school or school board may collect personal information from a parent, guardian, or student if at least one of the following applies. The collection is specifically authorized by a law, such as the Education Act, such as information for the OSR. The information is used for law enforcement purposes. It is necessary to deliver educational services or other related activities. Schools or school boards may disclose personal information for the reason it was collected for a consistent purpose, if they have the permission of the individual or their parent or guardian in the case of a minor, to comply with a law, for example, the duty to report to a children's aid society or to law enforcement, or in compelling circumstances affecting the health or safety of an individual where the disclosure is reasonably likely to reduce the risk of harm. Schools and school boards must also securely store, retain, and dispose of personal information records according to the rules outlined in the OSR Guideline for OSR Records, MFIPA, and the record retention schedule set by the school board. This includes securely destroying information that is no longer needed. That gives you an idea of what personal information is and why we have to manage it safely, so that we can meet our legal and ethical responsibilities and have strong public confidence that we meet all of these needs in PVNC. What are the policies and practices that PVNC has in place to help everyone manage personal information safely? Board Administrative Procedure 1202, Protection of Privacy, provides direction to all staff, and it is important that all staff are familiar with this procedure. It begins with the statement that PVNC is committed to the protection of privacy and recognizes that all employees are responsible for the protection of personal, confidential, and sensitive information entrusted to them. AP 1202 complies with all applicable provisions under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, MFIPA, the Personal Health Information Protection Act, FIPA, and the Education Act, including the Ontario Student Record Guidelines, to meet the board's statutory duties and responsibilities in the service of staff, students, and communities of PVNC. The general principles that guide PIM within PVNC are based on the Canadian Standards Act, CSA. These include the requirements to be accountable for policies and practices, that information is collected for specific purposes, that consent is collected when required, that collection, use, retention, and disclosure of information is limited to appropriate uses, that information held is accurate, that reasonable measures to safeguard information are taken, that the board has open and transparent policies and procedures related to PIM, that requests for information comply with an individual's rights, and that an individual may address or challenge compliance concerning the above principles to the Freedom of Information Coordinator accountable to the board. AP 1202 also indicates that a privacy culture needs to be embedded into daily practices to support the needs and expectations of parents, students, and staff with respect to information security and the protection of personal information. If an individual doesn't comply with the law or safe practices when they manage personal information, privacy breaches can occur. Some examples of privacy breaches and their causes include lost or stolen flash drives containing student or staff information, correspondence mailed or emailed to the wrong person, disclosing information about a student without consent or without legal authority. All employees are responsible for protecting students' information regardless of their role. If they become aware of a privacy breach or potential privacy breach, they must inform their supervisor, manager, or principal. Take immediate steps to contain the breach, for example, changing security passwords or retrieving copies of documents that were shared in error, and participate in any resulting investigation. After becoming aware of a breach, principals and managers are responsible for taking steps to contain the breach, advising the appropriate superintendent and Freedom of Information officer where required, and participating in any resulting investigation. The best practice for responding to a privacy breach is that if an employee becomes aware of a breach, they must immediately notify their supervisor so that immediate action can be taken to lessen its impact. Now that you understand what is comprised of PIM and of legislative requirements of the board and all its employees, let's look at some best practices that exist in the many areas where personal information is handled. Engage in daily practices and regard for personal information that ensures all information about students is treated as personal information that deserves protection under the law. You avoid casual sharing of students' personal information, even with colleagues. Computer screens are placed to prevent unauthorized viewing. You do not disclose passwords and use only school board-approved apps and services. That you have consent before posting any information about a student online that discloses personal information. Know what the related policies and practices of PIM are by familiarizing yourself with your workplace policies, providing privacy and security training to all your staff, reading the school board's record of retention schedule to find out how long to retain and how to securely destroy personal information, seeking advice and direction from the school administrator if you are unsure about anything to do with personal information of students. Organizing your work environment to restrict access to those employees that need the records or information to do their job. Ensure that sensitive and confidential information is not visible to the public. Encourage a clean desk policy to reduce the risk of exposing confidential information. Lock office and classroom doors and filing cabinets when not in use. Keep filing equipment or mailboxes behind a counter or other physical barrier separate from the public. Make sure fax machines and printers are in a secure area and retrieve sensitive documents right away. When faxing sensitive information, double-check the recipient's number before dialing and confirm receipt. Use locked shredding boxes for the secure destruction of paper records. Thank you for watching this training session for personal information management. Please keep your awareness of this topic as policies or practices are updated, and remember to ask your supervisor if you ever have questions or concerns related to this important topic.